What up? What up? What up? My last video I did was something to help newer players experiencing the trials of chaos, or more importantly, having difficulties with the trials of chaos. And I had some frustrations, and hopefully, again, it just helped people not to quit because I know that those obstacles can be a bit daunting, depending on how you feel about the build and just the overall playthrough at the time. So anyway, I've beaten Trials Play Chaos, I've beaten the game, and now I'm started to touch the end game. And I say touch deliberately as I'm on tier 7, but yeah, there's so much to learn and unpack, so that doesn't mean anything when I really say it like that. I literally just started touching the end game. I started with the Amazon because that was the new class for the season, and I wanted to see how she ticked. I'm glad I went with this choice. Obviously, she's popular as the new character for the season, but her overall play style just meshes very well. There's a lot of passive nodes that can just give you a lot of flexibility on how you want to play her, if that makes sense. So I'm glad that I went with her. She's just a great choice, great setup in terms of going through the season. Now, you've no doubt heard of the Lightning Spear builds, or honestly, the Lightning Spear build is, I thought that was only for the Huntress, but the Monk actually used that as well. So Lightning Spear overall is a very popular play style that's going on right now for the Hunter because the Lightning Spear just fucking rocks. It's just that powerful. But what I wanted to talk about is the cruel difficulty. I wanted to discuss how replaying the campaign served as a better tutorial than the original playthrough because of how it better prepares me for the end game, if that makes sense. So let's go over my character and just how she's looking right now, or how she was looking. Now, in terms of just going through my playstyle, there's nothing complex or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going straight through. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just picking nodes and trying to just pick nodes that kind of coalesce with how I want to play. Getting used to the game and all that type of jazz. But speaking in terms of cruel difficulty, I was able to, obviously, as you get familiar with the game, you have an idea of what you want to do. Basically, I saw the spear nodes all the way at the bottom, and I knew for a fact that those are the nodes I wanted to take advantage of, as the spear is my main play style, and just the stats on the passive nodes was ridiculous in regard to how much power it could provide me. And I went even further down because there was a couple of crit nodes and I think it was a blind node that I was thinking about getting into. But more importantly, there was some lightning node that gave you a double chance to shock enemies along with the damage bonus that I thought was pretty cool for my build. And that's where I wanted to kind of focus my leveling effort. So anyway, nothing too crazy. But what I'd like to say is this is where I started fine-tuning my build during the cool difficulty. Not really focusing on getting new gear, but just upgrading the gear that I had, where I'm using the chaos orbs to more or less augment and kind of looking for more specific pieces. Like, I'm not just picking up anything because it has a higher DPS or a higher tier. It literally had to make sense for my build. So again, it's just different compared to the original playthrough on normal difficulty, where you're just taking more, for the most part, you're taking something with just a higher stat grade overall because you're just leveling. The bosses actually are what I'd like to talk about. The bosses obviously are more difficult in the cool campaign. However, this is kind of spoilers because I started to play the end game, but the cool difficulty bosses, I think they are great because of how they prepare you for the end game. Obviously, they're stronger. There are some that can still one-shot you if you're not careful, if you think shit is sweet, where you just kind of think you can absorb an attack and you can, or they kind of stun lock you. You know what I mean? Like the same way they could kill you in the original playthrough, it's absolutely a possibility of them killing you the same way in the cool difficulty. But you're stronger, you're faster, you know how they fight because you've already killed them before. It's great preparation because once you get to end game, you do fight them again. You see them in certain areas, but there's a bit more of a kick that they have in terms of their presence. Obviously, attack, power, defense, immunities, blah, blah, blah. But you'll see. But it's just great preparation. And at this point, I'm kind of cruising through. There's very few obstacles that I have because I kind of know how to do what I got to do. But for the most part, I just recommend everyone just kind of just focus on collecting. Like when you're going through the cool difficulty, you're fine tuning and kind of collecting crafting materials. You don't need anything at this point because the end game is to get to the end game. So that's what I want to do with that segment. Just kind of just touch on cool difficulty and just talk about how important that is. And it's actually very much faster than the original playthrough as well, because you already been through it. You kind of can fly through it much faster. Again, that preparation for the end game is all throughout the cool difficulty playthrough. So what's the point, right? I beat the game, big deals. No big glorious achievement in that. Not even really fully beat the game, as I'm still technically getting into endgame. That's not the point, though. The reality of the situation is that Path of Exile 2, game that it is now, before, when Path of Exile 1 was out, and I guess me being on the outside, I never came into it, but I didn't actually jump into it because of just how massive it was at the time, if that makes sense. Couldn't respec, and I just didn't, I feel like you had to have to look up a guide to play the game properly, and that to me was kind of a turn off, if I'm being honest, why I didn't jump into Path of Exile 1. When Path of Exile 2 got announced, and it was years back, it was just an easy opportunity to just wait for that one to come out and see what the big hype was around. And more to the point, there was some hype in regard to not even the way GGG released the footage in regard to the gameplay trailers, yada yada, but the hype from the community in regard to their passion for the first one. How it's not pay to win, but pay for convenience if you're investing your time. So it was just they were marketing GGG as someone who's just good company, good people to stand behind. Anyway, second one comes out, and I jumped into it, but I had some issues with playing my minion build, the zombie health. That's not the point either. I waited for the second season, Dawn of the Hunt, and that first week it was really extreme with the way that everyone was reacting to the patches and all that jazz, with the way the enemies were too high in health and difficulty, yada yada. That's not the point neither, but I'm saying that the reaction was in terms of how much rage GGG got. The interview that they did with Zizarin, high profile interview. I'm sure pretty much everyone that's kind of in the Path of Exile loop knows about it already, but that kind of sold me. That's the point. I kind of, as an outside person, just kind of looking in, I saw the perspective of a kind of passionate PoE 1 player that's trying to get the best of PoE 2. That's just speaking for the player community. And they had GGG on the other side, and obviously, I don't know the personalities. I don't want to speak on that, just in terms of this, what they were trying to communicate. And I feel like that was the most important aspect. And again, that interview sold me just with the two things that GG said. The fact that they're just being transparent, the fact they're trying to put these things out, kind of firing from the hip, and the fact that they're very receptive to the feedback that Zizarin had, like their reactions to kind of understanding what Zizarin was trying to talk about in the interview. I thought that was really cool that they were trying to at least absorb it. They took it all front facing. So that sold me in terms of just the respect aspect, because not many developers would put themselves out there like that, especially so soon after the release, which I thought, just looking from the outside, like, damn, like, give them the feedback, but they got to have some time to kind of implement things. And I feel like that was communicated as well, but that's from my perspective in regard to why it was kind of extreme, because it just launched. It was just like the negative reviews, all that jazz. Like, yo, Path of Exile 1 players don't fuck around, man. Like, anyway, that sold me, but more to the point in regard to the pre-hype, just playing it now and just experiencing that flexibility and just how high the skill ceiling is. Like, I beat the game, but it's like the game is a big ass tutorial, if I'm being honest, in terms of getting to the end game where you really start playing the game. It just opens up in a massive way, and it's like, now I'm starting to see what the fuck the Path of Exile 1 players were talking about. Anyway. Oh, and I don't know what it is, but I've seen this term quite a few times. Rules of cat. That's I will find out what that means at some point. Yeah, that's really the end. I just wanted to say that piece. Path of Exile 2 is a cool game. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say with this video. Cheers.